In the heart of Europe, a land of misty forests and winding rivers has given rise to a people of profound contrasts. This is Germany, a nation of poets and philosophers like Goethe and Kant, but also of formidable warriors and ambitious kings. Its history is a dramatic tapestry woven with threads of breathtaking brilliance and unimaginable brutality. Here, the printing press revolutionized communication, and the Protestant Reformation reshaped faith across the continent. Yet this is also the land where devastating wars repeatedly redrawn the map of Europe, culminating in the darkest chapters of the 20th century. From the Germanic tribes that defied the might of Rome in the ancient Teutoburg forest to the rise of the Holy Roman Empire and the birth of a unified nation in 1871. Germany's path has been a relentless march through division and unification, collapse and rebirth. How did a nation at the center of two world wars become a beacon of democracy and stability? This is the epic story of Germany, a profound journey of triumph, tragedy, and ultimately remarkable transformation.
At the very center of Europe lies Germany, a crossroads of civilizations. Here, armies have clashed, empires have risen and fallen, and ideas have changed the world. For more than 2,000 years, the people of these lands shaped not only their destiny, but the destiny of all Europe. To understand the wars, the culture, the divisions, and the unity of Europe, one must understand Germany. Its story stretches from ancient tribes to modern democracy, from devastating wars to enduring resilience. This journey begins in the dark forests of the ancient world. 2,000 years ago, there was no Germany. Beyond the Roman frontier lay a vast, untamed wilderness of dense forests and swamps. This was Germania Magna, a land the Romans viewed with a mixture of contempt and fear. It was home to dozens of independent tribes, the Cherusci, the Suebi, the Goths. Bound by shared language, they were fiercely loyal to their own clans and chieftains in a warrior society where honor was paramount. Living in small settlements, they farmed clearings and hunted in the deep woods. But life was also defined by conflict. Constant intertribal warfare honed their fighting skills and forged a reputation for ferocity. Then, the might of Rome arrived. Driven to secure the frontiers of Gaul and expand the empire, Roman legions began to push east across the Rhine. It was Julius Caesar who first gave these disparate peoples a collective name, the Germani. A Roman label for an outsider's concept, the name would stick, echoing through history. But these tribes would not be easily conquered. Their decentralized society had no capital to capture, and their greatest ally was the land itself, the dark, tangled forests that neutralized Roman tactics. This resistance found its champion in a man who knew Rome from the inside, Arminius. A Cherusci prince raised in Rome, he served in its army, but his true loyalty lay with his people. In 9 CE, he betrayed the governor, Publius Quinctilius Varus, luring 3 legions deep into the Teutoburg forest. It was a perfectly laid trap. For 3 days, in torrential rain, a coalition of Germanic warriors ambushed the Roman column. Striking from the shadows, they used the terrain to their advantage, and nearly 20,000 Roman soldiers were slaughtered. The news sent shockwaves through the empire. The loss of 3 legions and their sacred eagle standards was a catastrophic blow. Emperor Augustus was inconsolable. The dream of conquering Germania Magna was dead. The Rhine became the empire's permanent frontier. The tribes had won their freedom, but the alliance forged by Arminius was fleeting. Once the Roman threat receded, old rivalries resurfaced. The hero was eventually assassinated by his own kinsman, who feared his ambition. The Germanic peoples remained fiercely independent and disunited. Yet, in this shared victory against the world's greatest power, a foundational myth was born. From these scattered warriors, the very first seeds of a future nation were planted in the soil of the German forest. After the fall of the Western Roman Empire, Europe fractured. Yet the dream of a unified Christian empire, a new Rome, never truly died. It lay dormant, waiting for a leader powerful enough to resurrect it. That leader was the Frankish king, Charlemagne. Through relentless campaigns, he forged a vast realm. On Christmas Day in 800, Pope Leo III crowned him Emperor of the Romans, a momentous act meant to revive the glory of ancient Rome. However, this new empire was built on personal loyalty. After Charlemagne's death, his grandsons divided the realm, and his grand vision crumbled. Yet, the imperial dream persisted. From the ashes of Charlemagne's eastern kingdom, a new power arose. In 962, the German king Otto the Great was crowned emperor by the Pope, formally establishing what would become known as the Holy Roman Empire. But this was an empire unlike any other. Not a centralized nation, but a complex tapestry of hundreds of semi-independent territories, kingdoms, duchies, and free cities, all loosely bound under an elected emperor. His authority was not absolute. He was chosen by powerful prince-electors, ensuring power remained decentralized. This fragmented structure guaranteed centuries of internal strife. Local princes, bishops, and emperors were locked in a constant struggle for dominance. A key flashpoint was the investiture controversy, a bitter power struggle with the papacy over who had the right to appoint church officials, a battle for the soul of the empire. Despite the turmoil, the Holy Roman Empire endured for over 8 centuries. Voltaire famously quipped it was neither holy nor Roman nor an empire, but this overlooks its profound influence. It wasn't until 1806, facing Napoleon's conquests, that the last emperor abdicated, dissolving the ancient realm. Its legacy, however, is etched into the political DNA of modern Central Europe. At the dawn of the 16th century, the Catholic Church was Europe's undisputed spiritual authority. Its power was woven into the fabric of daily life, but discontent simmered over the Church's immense wealth and practices, like the sale of indulgences, certificates promising less time in purgatory for a price. Many began to question the true path to salvation. In the German lands, a devout monk and theology professor, Martin Luther, experienced a profound spiritual crisis. He concluded that salvation came not from good works or payments, but through faith in God alone. This was a revolutionary idea, a direct challenge to church doctrine. On October 31, 1517, Luther made his challenge public, nailing his 95 theses to the church door in Wittenberg. He condemned the sale of indulgences and questioned papal authority, an act that would ignite a revolution. Aided by the newly invented printing press, Luther's words were translated from Latin into common German. Pamphlets spread like wildfire, carrying his message far beyond the university and into the hands of ordinary people, sparking a firestorm of debate. Rome reacted with fury. At the Diet of Worms in 1521, before the Holy Roman Emperor, Luther was ordered to recant. He refused, famously declaring his conscience captive to the Word of God. He was branded a heretic, but his ideas had already taken root. German princes, seeking greater autonomy, seized the opportunity. They protected Luther and broke with Rome, establishing new Protestant churches. Luther's translation of the Bible into German further empowered the movement, allowing people to interpret Scripture for themselves and forging a new German identity. Luther's defiance irrevocably split Christendom. The German lands fractured, with Protestant and Catholic states turning against each other. This religious schism unleashed decades of brutal conflict, transforming the political map of Europe. The Reformation was more than a religious dispute. It reshaped faith, politics, and identity. And at the center of this seismic upheaval, Germany found itself once again shaping the destiny of the continent. In the early 17th century, Central Europe was a powder keg. The fragile religious peace within the Holy Roman Empire was fracturing. In 1618, it finally ignited, exploding into one of the most destructive conflicts in European history, the 30 Years' War. The spark was a dramatic act of rebellion in Prague. Furious that the Catholic emperor was revoking their religious freedoms, Protestant nobles hurled his representatives from a castle window in the famous Defenestration of Prague. What began as a local revolt quickly spiraled into a continental catastrophe. the conflict engulfed the German lands, drawing in Denmark, Sweden, and finally France, each pursuing its own strategic goals on the bloody battleground. For 3 decades, vast mercenary armies crisscrossed the territory. Led by figures like Sweden's King Gustavus Adolphus, they lived off the land, bleeding communities dry. Warfare, famine, and plague became an inseparable trinity of death. The brutality was unimaginable. The 1631 sack of Magdeburg became a symbol of the war's horror, a thriving city reduced to ash, and a few thousand survivors. Villages were emptied. Cities were ruined. By the time peace was signed in 1648, the German lands had suffered a demographic catastrophe. It's estimated that as much as 1/3 of the population had perished, a loss of life on a scale not seen again in Europe for 300 years. The Peace of Westphalia ended the slaughter but cemented a new reality. The German lands were left devastated and politically fractured into hundreds of sovereign states. The authority of the Holy Roman Emperor was shattered, leaving a power vacuum at the continent's center. This treaty established the modern principle of state sovereignty. But for the German people, it meant centuries of division. They remained a patchwork of small states, vulnerable to their powerful neighbors, their path to national unity tragically delayed. The 30 Years' War had left the Holy Roman Empire a hollow shell. Though the institution survived, its central authority was shattered, leaving a power vacuum in the heart of Europe. From this patchwork of over 300 German states, one entity began a remarkable ascent. Initially a modest electorate known as Brandenburg, its scattered territories were united under the ambitious Hohenzollern dynasty. This was the nucleus of what would become the Kingdom of Prussia. Lacking natural resources and defensible borders, Prussia's rulers knew their survival depended on a single asset, the army. This obsession reached its zenith under King Frederick William I, the Soldier King. He relentlessly drilled his troops and established an efficient bureaucracy and the canton system, a revolutionary form of regional conscription that allowed Prussia to field an army disproportionately large for its population. The state did not have an army, the army had a state. His son, Frederick II, seemed an unlikely successor. A lover of music and philosophy, he clashed with his austere father. But upon taking the throne in 1740, this philosopher king revealed an iron will. He would be known to history as Frederick the Great. Wasting no time, Frederick launched a daring invasion of Silesia, triggering the War of the Austrian Succession. His victory stunned Europe. Later, in the grueling 7 Years' War, Frederick's military genius allowed Prussia to survive against a coalition of Austria, France, and Russia, cementing its reputation. At home, Frederick embodied the paradox of the enlightened despot. He reformed the justice system, promoted religious tolerance, and championed agricultural innovations. He built a state that was efficient, modern, and ruthlessly militarized. By the end of his reign, Prussia was a European great power, a land forged by iron, discipline, and ambition. This new order, however, would soon face its greatest challenge from a revolutionary storm gathering in the West. Prussia's destiny and the dream of German unity would be forged in the fires of a new continent-spanning conflict. The 19th century began with Napoleon's Grande Armée sweeping across Europe. For the German-speaking lands, a patchwork of states in the Holy Roman Empire, this was a cataclysm. In 1806, Napoleon dissolved the empire, leaving a power vacuum. Prussia was crushed at Jena Auerstedt. In its place, Napoleon established the Confederation of the Rhine, a league of German states loyal to Paris. French laws were imposed and German soldiers conscripted, fueling deep humiliation and resentment. Yet in defeat, a new spirit stirred. In occupied Berlin, philosopher Johann Gottlieb Fichte delivered his addresses to the German nation, calling for renewal based on a shared language and culture, distinct from the universalist claims of France. This burgeoning nationalism captivated a new generation. Students dreamed of a unified nation-state, free from French rule and internal division. Volunteer units like the Lutzow Free Corps, with their black, red, and gold uniforms, became powerful symbols of this nascent unity. The opportunity came in 1813. After Napoleon's disastrous Russian campaign, a grand coalition formed. At the Battle of Leipzig, the Battle of the Nations, over 500,000 soldiers clashed. For the first time, Germans from different states fought side by side against a common foe, forging a bond of shared sacrifice. The coalition's victory broke Napoleon's dominance. Hailed as a national liberation, it planted the seed of modern nationalism, the belief that the German people, bound by language and culture, were destined for unity. The idea had taken root. In 1848, revolution swept across Europe. In the German states, this springtime of peoples ignited long-suppressed calls for freedom, civil rights, and national unity. Hope centered on Frankfurt, where the first freely elected German parliament convened. Delegates in St. Paul's Church were tasked with forging a single nation from dozens of states. Inside, passionate debates raged over Germany's future, a republic or a monarchy, a greater Germany with Austria, or a smaller one led by Prussia. On the streets, the public demanded more than a flag. They called for freedom of the press, an end to aristocratic privilege, and a government accountable to the people. After months of work, the assembly produced the Frankfurt Constitution. It guaranteed fundamental rights and established a federal monarchy, a blueprint for a modern, liberal Germany. The assembly then offered the imperial crown to Prussia's king, Frederick William IV. His acceptance was the crucial step needed to make their liberal vision a reality. But the king refused. A believer in divine right, he scornfully rejected a crown from the gutter, unwilling to accept authority from elected representatives. His rejection shattered the revolution's momentum. The old conservative order saw their chance, moving to crush the movement with overwhelming military force. The Frankfurt Assembly was forcibly dissolved, its delegates scattered. The dream of a liberal Germany was crushed by kings and armies unwilling to share power. The dream of unity, however, would not die. But the failure of 1848 taught a harsh lesson. It would not come through parliaments, but through war. The task of German unification fell to Otto von Bismarck. As Prussia's Iron Chancellor, he dismissed parliamentary debate, practicing realpolitik, a ruthless pursuit of national interest. He famously declared, the great questions of the day would be decided not by speeches, but by iron and blood, a blueprint for unification through war. His plan had 3 acts. First, war with Denmark in 1864 tested his modernized army. 2 years later, he turned on Austria. The swift victory expelled the Habsburgs and created the North German Confederation. The final piece was France. Using a cleverly edited telegram, Bismarck provoked the French into declaring war. This perceived French aggression was the catalyst, rallying the reluctant southern German states to Prussia's side in a surge of nationalist unity. With Paris defeated, German princes gathered in the enemy's symbolic heart, the Hall of Mirrors at Versailles. There, in a calculated display of dominance, they proclaimed the Prussian king, Wilhelm I, as German emperor. Bismarck's strategy had succeeded. After centuries of fragmentation, a powerful German empire was forged in the fires of war, forever altering the balance of power in Europe. Following its unification in 1871, the new German Empire grew at an astonishing speed. A strong central government fostered a common market and invested in infrastructure, igniting an unprecedented economic explosion. This was the Gründerzeit, the Founders' Era. Germany's factories roared to life. In the industrial heartland of the Ruhr Valley, giants like Krupp helped Germany surpass Britain in steel production. This industrial might became the bedrock of the new empire's power, building cities, railways, and ominously modern armies. The nation also dominated new high-tech industries, leading the world in chemicals and electrical engineering. This supremacy was fed by its world-class universities. They became centers of science and philosophy, turning laboratory breakthroughs into powerful industrial applications. By the late 1800s, Germany was Europe's leading industrial power. But with this power came friction and rivalry. The established empires, especially Britain and France, watched Germany's meteoric rise with deep apprehension as the balance of power shifted. This rivalry sharpened under Kaiser Wilhelm II's aggressive Weltpolitik, sparking a costly naval arms race with Britain. Economic competition was hardening into military confrontation. A new storm was brewing, fueled by nationalism and fear, a storm that would soon engulf the entire world. In the summer of 1914, a single gunshot in Sarajevo ignited the intricate web of alliances that bound Europe. Germany, tied to the Austro-Hungarian Empire, was pulled into the heart of the escalating crisis. A wave of patriotic fervor swept the nation. Many believed the war would be a swift, glorious affair over by Christmas. But Germany's high command faced a daunting reality: a war on two fronts. To the west, France and the British Empire. To the east, the vast Russian army. Their strategy, the audacious Schlieffen Plan, called for a lightning-fast victory over France before Russia could fully mobilize. The initial German advance was staggering, pushing deep into French territory. But at the Battle of the Marne, the offensive stalled. The war of movement ground to a halt, and a new, brutal form of combat emerged. For 4 agonizing years, German soldiers, alongside their adversaries, endured the unimaginable horrors of trench warfare. A static, subterranean world of mud, rats, and constant, nerve-shattering artillery fire. This was a war of attrition, where life was measured in yards of captured earth, and the psychological toll was as devastating as any physical wound. Epic battles like Verdun and the Somme became synonymous with industrial-scale slaughter. At Verdun, the German strategy was to bleed France white, but it bled Germany just as profoundly. The Somme offensive resulted in over 1 million casualties, a testament to the futility of a conflict where generals sacrificed legions for minimal gains. Millions on all sides were lost. While soldiers bled on the front lines, the home front was slowly starving. The British Royal Navy's blockade cut off vital supplies, strangling the German economy and its people. The infamous turnip winter of 1916-17 saw the civilian population subsisting on ersatz foods and root vegetables. Hunger fueled dissent, and the initial war enthusiasm curdled into widespread unrest and strikes. In a final desperate gamble in the spring of 1918, Germany launched a massive offensive. But the army was exhausted, and the arrival of hundreds of thousands of fresh American soldiers tipped the balance decisively. The breaking point came not on the battlefield, but at home. In November, sailors in Kiel mutinied, sparking a revolution that swept across the country. The war effort, and the state itself, collapsed from within. Faced with revolution, and abandoned by his military command, Kaiser Wilhelm II was forced to abdicate. He fled into exile in the Netherlands, a lonely figure symbolizing the end of an era. The German Empire, forged in victory just 50 years earlier, was gone. In its place, a fragile new republic was declared amidst the chaos. Germany had lost the war, but the cost was far greater than just territory and reparations. The nation was left deeply scarred, its pride shattered, its society fractured. The ordeal of the Great War was over, but its bitter legacy would shape Germany's tragic destiny for decades to come. In the ashes of World War I, with the German Empire defeated and its Kaiser having abdicated, a new Germany was born. For the first time, the nation embraced republicanism. Delegates gathered not in the turmoil of Berlin, but in the quiet town of Weimar to draft a new constitution. What emerged was one of the most progressive, democratic frameworks in the world, granting universal suffrage. It was called the Weimar Republic, a fragile, audacious experiment in democracy, born from national humiliation and burdened from the start by the punitive terms of the Treaty of Versailles. Yet, against this backdrop of political turmoil, an unprecedented cultural explosion erupted. The 1920s brought a dazzling, almost frantic, cultural brilliance. Berlin became the pulsating heart of the avant-garde, a global capital of art, cinema, and science. The radical designs of the Bauhaus school reshaped modern aesthetics, while expressionist filmmakers created haunting worlds on screen. In smoke-filled cabarets, performers pushed the boundaries of satire, while thinkers like Albert Einstein were revolutionizing physics. It was a golden age of creativity, a brief, bright flare of genius. But beneath this glittering surface, deep-seated chaos brewed. To pay crushing war reparations, the government printed money relentlessly. The result was catastrophic hyperinflation. Savings became worthless overnight. A loaf of bread could cost billions of marks. People carted currency in wheelbarrows, using useless banknotes as fuel. This economic despair fueled political extremism. Paramilitary groups from both the far left and far right battled for control of the streets, turning cities into war zones and assassinating political figures. Faced with constant crisis, many Germans lost faith in democracy, viewing it as weak and ineffective. Just as the nation began to stabilize, a final blow arrived. When the Great Depression struck in 1929, the American loans propping up the German economy vanished. Businesses collapsed, factories fell silent, and unemployment soared to staggering levels. Despair deepened into a national trauma. In this vacuum of hope, the German people yearned for a savior. The door was open for a radical new leader who promised to restore order, defy the world, and deliver strength and revenge. In 1933, Germany was a nation crippled by economic depression and the lingering shame of World War I. Adolf Hitler and his Nazi party exploited this desperation, promising national rebirth. Appointed chancellor, he quickly began dismantling democracy, preying on a country's desire for a strong leader. Using the Reichstag fire as a pretext, civil liberties were suspended. Through the pervasive propaganda of Joseph Goebbels and the brutal terror of the Gestapo and SS, all opposition was crushed. Germany was transformed into a totalitarian state, where loyalty to the Führer was the only law. The regime's foundation was a hateful ideology of racial supremacy and territorial expansion, or Lebensraum. The Nuremberg laws systematically stripped Jewish citizens of their rights, while the Hitler Youth indoctrinated an entire generation, preparing them for a future of conflict and conquest. In defiance of international treaties, Germany began a massive rearmament. Hitler tested the world's resolve, annexing Austria and parts of Czechoslovakia with little resistance. Finally, on September 1, 1939, the invasion of Poland ignited the flames of World War II, plunging Europe into darkness. From 1939 to 1945, the conflict raged across the globe, from the Eastern Front's brutal winters to the beaches of Normandy. Millions of soldiers perished. But behind the battle lines, the Nazis carried out the Holocaust, the systematic industrial murder of 6 million Jews. It was a crime of unimaginable scale, executed in death camps like Auschwitz, a dark abyss in human history. By 1945, the Third Reich lay in ruins. Allied forces occupied a defeated nation. Germany's cities were vast landscapes of rubble, its people starving and displaced. This was Stunde Null, 0 hour. The war was over, but the country faced a grim reality. Its name was now synonymous with destruction, and its people were left to confront a legacy of profound and inescapable guilt. After the war, the victorious Allies, the US, UK, France, and the Soviet Union, divided Germany into 4 occupation zones. This was meant to be a temporary measure to demilitarize and rebuild the nation, but the spirit of cooperation would not last. As the Cold War began, the Western Allies unified their zones, establishing the Democratic Federal Republic of Germany in 1949. In response, the Soviets created a communist state in their zone, the German Democratic Republic. The temporary lines had hardened into an ideological frontier. Deep inside the Soviet zone lay Berlin, itself partitioned among the 4 powers. This created an island of Western freedom in a sea of communism, a constant flashpoint. The Berlin airlift of 1948, a massive operation to supply the blockaded city, was the first major confrontation of the Cold War. For years, Berlin remained a porous border, an escape hatch for millions of East Germans. This brain drain threatened the GDR's existence. So on the night of August 13, 1961, the East German government sealed the border. Soldiers erected a barrier of concrete and barbed wire, dividing the city overnight. The Berlin Wall became the most potent symbol of the Cold War. Officially the anti-fascist protection rampart, it was a stark line between the vibrant freedom of the West and the gray, controlled existence of the East. It was the Iron Curtain made of concrete. For nearly 3 decades, families were divided and lives were restricted. The wall became a fortified death strip, with guard towers and a shoot-to-kill order. Over 140 people died trying to cross to freedom. Their memorials a grim reminder of the human cost of this division. Germany was no longer the heart of Europe. It was the front line of a divided world. Here, the forces of NATO and the Warsaw Pact stood face to face. The fate of this fractured nation became the central drama of the Cold War, a constant reminder of a planet on the brink. But history changed in 1989. Peaceful protests, starting in Leipzig, swept across East Germany. Hundreds of thousands bravely demanded freedom, their chants for reform becoming impossible for the state to ignore. The breaking point came on November 9th. During a press conference, an official mistakenly announced that citizens could cross the border, effective immediately. The news spread like wildfire through the city. Disbelief turned to euphoria as crowds surged to the checkpoints. Overwhelmed guards lifted the barriers, and a torrent of humanity poured through, shattering the Iron Curtain in one joyous night. For 28 years, the wall had separated families. Now came the tearful reunions. Strangers embraced, champagne flowed, and a city celebrated its newfound unity under the stars. The sound of hammers and chisels echoed as jubilant wall-peckers began dismantling the hated symbol. People danced on the concrete, claiming victory over decades of division. This revolution paved the way for a political miracle. On October 3, 1990, East and West officially became one nation, raising the unified flag at the Brandenburg Gate. After decades of Cold War separation, Germany was whole again, its future reborn in the heart of a free Europe. Today, Germany stands as a cornerstone of the European Union, boasting the continent's largest economy and a globally respected democracy. Its capital, Berlin, is a testament to this journey. A city reborn, pulsating with creative energy and historical resonance. The label Made in Germany remains a global benchmark for quality, driven by precision engineering and relentless industrial innovation. As a pioneer in the Energiewende, Germany leads the charge toward a sustainable future, powered by renewable energy sources. This forward thinking is rooted in a rich intellectual heritage, home to thinkers, musicians, and scientists who changed the world. From the profound philosophies of Kant to the literary masterpieces of Goethe, it is the celebrated land of poets and thinkers. Yet, it's also a place of vibrant tradition and Gemütlichkeit, a unique warmth joyfully expressed in festivals like Oktoberfest. This cultural richness is set against breathtaking landscapes, from fairy tale castles in the Alps to the serene, winding Rhine River. The legendary Autobahn symbolizes this blend of old and new, a network connecting historic towns with the nation's futuristic ambitions. From Beethoven to the Autobahn, from green energy to global leadership, Germany continues to shape our collective future. The story of Germany is one of darkness and light. For centuries, it was a mosaic of competing states, a land of fairy tale castles and fierce rivalries within the Holy Roman Empire. Then, in the 19th century, a powerful nation was forged from iron and blood, uniting a people under one flag. The 20th century brought industrial might, but also the profound darkness of two world wars, leaving the nation in ruins. Yet, from the ashes rose an economic miracle, shadowed by the stark reality of a country divided by the Iron Curtain. The fall of the Berlin Wall was a symbol of hope, a testament to the unyielding desire for freedom and unity. Today, a reunified Germany stands at the heart of Europe, a leader in innovation and a guardian of memory. Its history is Europe's history, and its legacy continues to shape our world.